The first time I saw Alfred Hitchcock's The Lady Vanishes wasn't from the Criterion collection, but a poor quality bootleg. It was part of a cheap 10-film DVD set from the mid-2000s that were everywhere. The set contained Hitchcock's early British and silent films, as well as 2 episodes of his anthology TV series, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, the show with the musical intro that most people associate with the director. Even on such a lackluster DVD, I found myself fascinated by this film more than any other film on the set. It's richly dense in its setting, intriguing in its mystery, and even has an exciting shootout of a climax. Based on the novel The Wheel Spins by Ethelina White, the film follows tourist Iris Henderson, played by the rising star Margaret Lockwood. Iris is heading back to England via train to get married. During her journey, she befriends the kindly old governess of Miss Froy, who is sharing a cabin with her. When Iris takes a nap, however, she awakens to find that Froy isn't in her cabin. But what's even more concerning is that nobody seems to remember Froy. Since Iris was bonked on the head by a planter just before boarding the train, several people believe that she hallucinated Froy. Not convinced that Froy was fake, she quietly attempts to uncover the mystery of the governess and the sinister plot behind her disappearance. Only the passenger of Gilbert Redman, a musical expert, aids her in proving the existence of Miss Froy. I really like how the mystery boils over the course of the film. For almost the entire first half, Iris is trying to convince both the train and herself that she didn't imagine Froy. There are a few scenes where she almost believes the naysayers, but then some clue will reveal itself and she's back on the case. By the time Miss Froy is found, however, the bigger plot unfolds, and it becomes less of a mystery and more of a spy thriller, complete with shootouts and daring escapes. I mean, I love this scene where Froy just runs away from the enemy and can apparently outrun bullets. Hitchcock had accepted directing duties of this film after the plans fell through with director Roy William Neill. The film had started production in Yugoslavia, but when the local authorities got a hold of the script and found out it wasn't the best portrayal of the country, the crew was kicked out of Yugoslavia and the producer pretty much abandoned the film. It's for this reason why the first act of the film isn't set in Yugoslavia, but instead the fictional country of Bandrika. Hitchcock's filming didn't seem to venture outside England, but hey, why risk burning European bridges if you don't have to? Not only is the country that our characters are coming from kept vague, but so are its politics and even the MacGuffin. This may seem frustrating that we're never given the full scope of the spy story, but Hitchcock gets around this by making the politics more important to the characters than to its audience. This staging helped keep the story more about the characters and their plight rather than their grander placement on a political stage. You can think of it as a boiled-down spy thriller that does away with a lot of the lesser baggage that usually accompanies the genre. Hitchcock film makes a handful of changes from the book. The character of Miss Froy is given a more exciting reveal, not just being an old woman who happens to come into some secret information, but a full-blown spy who is trying to maintain cover. Iris also receives sunstroke in the book instead of a blow to the head that causes others to believe that she is hallucinating. Some characters were newly added, as with the cricketing duo of Charters and Caldicott. Other characters, however, were simply written out, such as a professor who acts as a language interpreter between Iris and Gilbert. Now, one neat aspect of the film is that the characters of Charter and Caldicott would appear in a number of other films, such as Carol Reed's Night Train to Munich and John Baxter's Crook's Tour, which also appears on the Criterion set for The Lady Vanishes. There's also the TV series for the characters, which is simply titled Charters and Caldicott. Oh, and the title of the novel, The Wheel Spins, was quite literal. The train never stopped in the book, but in Hitchcock's film, the train stops for an intense shootout. Also not in the book, a shootout. But this addition to the plot only further ramps up the tension, where there's a real possibility that the unlikely heroes won't survive such an encounter when the train is stopped and there are gunmen just outside the train. As one of Hitchcock's earlier sound pictures, his use of sound was very unique. He chooses very specific sounds that evoke more realism than exaggeration, such as favoring the sound of a train when watching Iris collapse. In the same way that a 3D movie tends to have that obvious moment where the experience shines most, the audio favors a whistled tune being the sign that Froy will use when she is safe. The Lady Vanishes can be considered one of Hitchcock's first films that made American audiences perk up and realize this was a director worth paying attention to. His previous films failed to land big box office, but The Lady Vanishes would end up being a big success. The film was widely praised upon its release, causing Hollywood producer David O. Selznick to remark that there may just be a future for Hitchcock in Hollywood. Now, I would later ditch my bootleg of the film once I saw the Criterion release, which was like a whole new experience. I'm glad that the film is in the Criterion collection, considering that it could have been easily lost among the remakes, such as the 1979 version with Sybil Shepherd and Angela Lansbury, or the 2013 version with Tuppence Middleton. No offense to those other versions, I really do love Angela Lansbury, but I just really enjoy the Hitchcock version best. Considering it was one of the first Hitchcock films to break through to an American audience, it holds up remarkably well for its acclaim, and is easily some of the best of Hitchcock's early British works.